Okay, so today we are going to start talking about what are known as the laws of exponents, and they're basically rules or generalizations that you can make based off of observing patterns that happen with exponents. And so really quickly, before we talk about the first rule or the first law, I want to review a few things about exponents. First one is just remember that exponents is a way of expressing repeated multiplication. So for example, if I have 5 to the third power, as most of you probably remember, what this means is that actually I have 5 times itself 3 times. So not 5 times 3, but 5 times itself 3 times. And in this, just some vocab to go along with it, the big number on the bottom that you're multiplying over and over is called the base. And the little number that tells you how many times to multiply it is called the power. So as long as we remember that, then we're good to go. The first rule or generalization we are going to talk about is what happens when you multiply exponents that have the same base. So for example, let's say I am going to take 5 to the third power, and I'm going to multiply it by 5 to the second power. And so the important thing to notice here is that they both are 5, so the base number is the same. So I want you to think about what this really means, and in order to do that, I'm going to write this out in what you call expanded form. So 5 to the third power, what that means in expanded form is that I have 5 times 5 times 5. And I'm multiplying this by 5 to the second power, which means 5 times 5. This is expanded form. If you look at what we have here, we actually just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fives all multiplied times each other. It doesn't actually matter that 3 of them are here and 2 of them are here. And so really all of this simplifies to be 5 to the 5th power. So that's my first example. I'm going to give you one more example, and I want you to think about, do you notice a pattern of how you could get this final exponent just by looking at the first two? Let's say I have x squared, x to the second power, times x to the 5th power. And I want to know what this simplifies to as just a single exponent. And of course, I don't know what x is, so I'm not going to get a value like 125 or something like that. I'm just going to get a simplified variable. So to do that, I'm going to write this all out in expanded form. And I'm going to write x squared, which I know is x times x. And I'm going to write x to the 5th, which I know is 5 x's, all multiplied by themselves. So because this is all multiplication, I actually don't need these parentheses here. I'm going to just get rid of them. And what I'm left with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 x's, all multiplied together, which tells me that as a final expression, I've got x to the 7th power. So x squared times x to the 5th is x to the 7th power. And that's what we call the simplified expression. So this is example 2. And after looking at these two examples, I want you to think to yourself, do you notice a pattern for what happened to get from the initial expression to the final expression that would help you come up with a generalization? You can think about that while I erase this board. So you may have noticed that when I had 5 to the 3rd times 5 squared, and I ended up with 5 to the 5th, by expanding it all out, that really I could have gotten the same answer if I just added the powers. And the same thing when I had x to the 2nd power times x to the 5th power, I expanded it all out, there were 7 x's multiplied together, which gave me x to the 7th, that really I could have gotten the same answer by just adding the powers. This is the first rule or the first law of exponents, which is if you multiply two exponent expressions that have the same base, keep the base and add the powers. So if you multiply two exponent expressions that have the same base, keep the base and add the powers. You'll see this written as x to the m times x to the n is equal to x to the m plus n, which just means that if you have some number to one power and you multiply it by the same number to another power, it's the same expression as taking that number and adding the two powers. So that is your first rule or law of exponents.